Man of the year, man of the year, man of the year. Welcome to the number one friendship podcast in the country. I'm Matt Ritter.
I'm Aaron Karo.
Guys, go to our YouTube page. Look at our beautiful faces there. Buy some merch. Buy a We Should Be Friends hat. It's cool. Karo, I read a really interesting article that was entitled 6 Signs Your Friend is Quiet Quitting Your Friendship. It was in Business Insider. I think it's an interesting topic that happens to a lot of us. I think a lot of us quiet quit our friends or are getting quiet quit ourselves. Have you quiet quit anyone recently or been quiet quit? I guess would have to define what that is first, but I'm just curious if you just off the top of your head that resonates with you.
By the way, I love like when these terms just like go viral and are just like so in the zeitgeist, like nepo babies, quiet quitting. Like it's really.
Hey, did you quiet quit your grocery store? Hey, did you quiet quit Gelson's? Hey, have you quiet quit Whole Foods lately?
But this is another thing.
Did you quiet quit your train? I did quiet quit my haircut.
Yeah, you did, and he never. You left your barber to go to my barber, and he never followed up.
Are you quiet quitting your babysitter? I know it's so ridiculous.
But let me just ask you about quiet quitting, like how it originally started with like Gen Z people just leaving their jobs.
I was the original quiet quitter at work. We know this.
Yes, you invented quiet quitting in the late aughts. But can you even imagine if you had we haven't had day jobs in decades, just not showing up one day? Like that's insane.
That's what I did though. I did that. I stopped showing up at Kirkland and Ellis, biggest law firm in the world.
But you didn't stop showing up forever.
No, I did.
You just stopped never.
No, I stopped. I forwarded my calls. I was in my apartment for weeks on end.
But what about the stuff that was like in your desk? Why am I asking? You didn't have anything in your desk. I don't know, your belongings, your personal effects. Have I ever been quiet quit? No, most of my. Yes, I have. I have had a friendship quiet quit.
Did it bother you that it was quiet, or was it okay to you that it happened quietly?
And by the way, when I say that, I mean like a friend who I kind of stopped hearing from a while and then never hung out with, and then like is no longer really a friend. Did it bother me? Well, just like a relationship, when you get ghosted, you just don't know where you stand. You don't know what happened. Was it me? Was it you? Like what's going on? So it's not great.
The difference
what's the alternative?
The difference between ghosting and quiet quitting, I think we have to define. Ghosting is like immediate, gone, right? I think quiet quitting is like a ghost crawling out of your room on his hands and knees and getting to the door and like slowly closing the door behind him, and you never even realized that he was backing away the whole time. Right?
Right.
Well, let's talk about, this article had an interesting one. So they have this Dr. Miriam Kermeyer, who I think I'd like to get on the pod. She's a clinical psychologist, talks a lot about friendship. She talked about how to notice sort of the signs that somebody's quiet quitting.
Okay.
I think this is a big one. And I've always talked about this just in general. This isn't just about quiet quitting. This is just also about whether a friendship is healthy. If they rarely initiate contact anymore, I think she says that's one of the most immediate signs. If they're not reaching out as often, not the one to pick up the phone, not call you. Now, I've always said a friendship shouldn't be, never realistically is going to be 50-50. But if you have a friend that's no longer, texting or calling you or like one word answers to your text, like that's never a good sign, right? Similarly, this is number 2. They don't share as much as they used to. So it can look like withdrawal in terms of the emotional investment. Like maybe they respond, but it's short, or they don't really give you any updates on their life, not being sort of as open with you. Like, so it's sort of like missing kind of that second level, right? So those are 2 signs. Number 3 is they stopped asking you deeper questions. They're all kind of related. I think it's about showing you that they're not really caring about you that much, right? Like I've always hated that in general. I think this applies to both friendships that are active and ones that have been quiet quit. It's never a good sign. These red flags are similar. The idea that someone is not asking about you, not concerned with you. Number 4, now this is one I hadn't heard. They won't hang out with you one-on-one. That's an interesting one.
So only in a group.
Yeah, I never thought of that. So if somebody will only hang out in groups and not with you, that's a sign that they're quiet quitting. Number 5 is you asked and there's nothing else going on. So that's if you've actually asked up front.
Right.
So they may be dealing with something and you don't know. They may be depressed. They may be grieving. So, if it turns out there isn't anything else going on. So she's basically saying, if you ask and because you're like, oh man, maybe their cousin's dying. And it's like,
right.
No, they just want out of this friendship.
Well, it's funny you bring up being depressed because as you're going down this list, they all do seem like things like the other person may be depressed.
Right. So if they're like, no, I'm actually better than I've ever been in my life mentally. My mental health is great. I just don't think you're my friend.
Well, do the people who are depressed know they're depressed?
Some do, some don't. I think if you have the tools, some people are, aware. And if they've had multiple bouts of depression, I think most people who have had depression.
This is going to be so strange, but when you read an article about someone who's beaten depression, or Senator Fetterman, other people, and a lot of I don't want to call it a trope, but a lot of people say I literally could not get out of bed.
Right.
Like I couldn't get out of bed. And that always struck me as like, I can't imagine that. Like even when I'm struggling with something, like, don't you have to like go to the grocery store, go to work?
Not anymore. Now you can Uber Eats it all. Now you can literally not get out of bed. You can work from your bed. It's a lot easier to stay in that funk.
Right. I guess.
Here's number 6, by the way.
Yeah.
This one also a good one. I think maybe the best one. You're confused about your friendship status. If a friend is quiet quitting you, you're probably unsure about where you stand as friends. You might still see them as one of your BFFs, but worry they see you as a little more than acquaintance. So that mismatch of expectations can be a sign of quiet quitting.
Right. Well, I mean, number 5 was you asked and nothing else is going on. Yeah. I mean, it is kind of weird. Like, is that like, you need to have a full-on conversation. Like, is that like, oh, are you okay? And they go, yeah, I'm fine. Like, that's a weird conversation to have as opposed to
you ask a couple times. But I think also look, the direct one is, are we good?
Are we good? Right. But if I wasn't good with someone, I would be like, yeah, it's fine. Like, let's turn this the other way. Why do people quiet quit their friends?
I mean, there's a lot of reasons. Number 1 is they realize that that's the person they don't want to be close with. They don't share values. They're not in the same phases of life. They're, could just be a difference of who they are as people, but it also could just be like, I'm busy. And like you said, sometimes you take a sabbatical from certain people.
But you're not going to, if you're feeling all those things, would you posit that a healthier way would be like, hey, Matt, I don't feel like we're in the same place anymore, so I'm hard quitting this?
So I think that is nonsense. You and I both know that's nonsense. The communication about friendship is never going to get to the point. Like in relationships, people are always like, can't believe they ghosted me. The mature thing to do would have been sitting me down and telling me all the things that are wrong with me. That would have been the mature thing to do. It's like bullshit, right? Like people don't do that, right? Rare is the person that does that. I mean, look,
so
I think
you're pro ghost.
I'm not pro ghost. I'm just a realist. I think if a relationship has gone on a certain length of time, yes, I think it warrants having some sort of communication. But again, I think this idea that we're going to like come clean about things we don't like about somebody else, is there really an upside to that? I think we've all done that calculus and we all say, no, I don't want to hurt this person's feelings. And I think, so realistically, I really think that friendship, it's even less likely that somebody who's quiet quitting is going to instead go, it would be better if I tell you why I don't want to be friends with you anymore.
Right. Okay. But let's say there's someone in your life and, you want to move them to friend emeritus status. It was a good run. You're too busy. I'm just going to kind of slow roll this a little bit. And then they reach out to you and say, hey, like, haven't seen you in a while. Are we good? Are you okay? What do you say back?
I think you just give a quick reply. If you're trying to quiet quit, all good, but don't indicate that you actually want to get together again.
Right. So basically and I'm not saying I don't agree, you're basically saying never actually tell the truth. You can't ever break up with a friend, really.
I'm not saying you can or you can't. I'm just being a realist. I'm not now going to advise people that they have to now all of a sudden do something that I know would be super hard for me to do. I don't want to give advice that I wouldn't even practice.
Right.
The idea that we're going to suddenly get people to go around hard quitting their friends. I love that term.
Yeah. A loud quit. Yeah. I mean, that's why there's
I think listen, if you want to maintain friendships, that's one thing. I think it's important to communicate and vocalize your disagreements, verbalize your issues if you think you can work through them. Right. And I think it's okay to communicate with people, hey, I'm just really busy or whatever. But I think, look, if you're the type of person that feels it's within you to communicate to somebody like, hey, I just don't think this friendship is serving me right now, or I don't think we're in the same place. Like, if that's you, great. I just don't think that's very many people.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, unless an incident occurred, having a quiet, quick.
If there's an incident, I agree with you. If there's an incident that could be talked out and sort of specified, maybe, right? If something happened, that person did something, and be like, look, I just don't, I don't want that in my life anymore or whatever. That's more of a friend breakup though. That's a friend breakup, right? I mean, we're talking about quiet quitting or breakup, right? Hard quit is breakup.
Yeah. I mean, because for instance, as we know, one of my New Year's resolutions is to honor the inner circle, which is like, make sure I'm watering the tight circle by definition, which by the way, I have been struggling to do because it's just easier. It's harder than it seems. But by definition, that means I have to spend less time with the outer circle. So I hope those people don't think I'm quiet quitting them because I'm.
But maybe you have quiet quit a few of them as you did your new inventory. I don't know. Have you?
I think so. So we're in the summer now. So I'm about to have my birthday. We're about to birthday, as you would say, verb it.
We're gonna birthday hard for you. We always birthday hard for you.
Well, I want to talk about this because if you recall, last summer we had a really big birthday, and I said to you after, I said on the pod, it was too big.
Too big.
You can't even like talk to anybody. Now I know that this is a high class champagne problem, but I left afterwards, not literally afterwards, but the next few weeks being like, I don't know if I want to go so big anymore because like it's not what I crave.
Right.
And I wondered if I was
intimacy, and then you go around flitting around for 2 minutes per conversation. It's like you're at a wedding.
Right. Exactly. Now, by the way, there's upsides to that because you get everyone together, your friends meet each other, you get to see people you don't usually see. And we talk about using your birthday as a tool to like, because nobody can decline a birthday invite. But now it's been almost a year later, and I got to say, I feel the same way. And I'm going to do a social inventory, which is like, I literally have a list of my friends in LA, and some people will probably get dropped off this year.
It's hilarious. I did the exact opposite of what I said I would do. I said I was kind of
the credo.
I said I was going to go smaller and like a lot of that too. And then for Brenda's birthday, I went crazy and invited all of my new parent, like not even friends, like acquaintances, plus all my old friends. Because I love throwing a party. I love connecting people. That's just part of, I think I just have to accept that's part of who I am. And that can be separate from, I have other ways to sort of focus on my friendships in healthy ways. I don't need to pare down my parties to do it.
What's incredible about you, Matt, and we talked about it after our Man of the Year holiday party, is that I was talking to best friend Mike. I was like, dude, I barely had more of a minute conversation with like 5 people. And he was like, or maybe either you said like, Matt, I had a 20-minute conversation with Matt, and like 10 people said that. Matt, you somehow defy the laws of physics at a party where you spend a good time with multiple people. It's
not
insane.
to toot my own horn, but I do make a concerted effort to make people feel that I'm connected to them in a short period of time that I have flitting around a party.
It's honestly, I'm envious of it. I don't even know how you do it. How do you do it?
I mean, I think I go into a party with the idea that I want to make sure everyone feels seen by me.
I mean, it's just funny the way you said that, but okay.
Yeah.
I know what you're saying.
Yeah. Like I like to, it's not just the high. I like to stop and just go, okay, I'm with you now. Even if it was literally a 4-minute exchange, like I want that to be. So what I don't do is I don't like wave to anybody else who's coming in while that interaction is happening.
I love that because I'm going to be very honest. I'm not proud of this. When I'm in a situation like that, I immediately think, who else do I need to talk to? It's not a diss to the person. It's more like, okay, now I'm in this convo. There's 10 other people around.
By the way, I do actively say I have to circulate. And I think that's a really
you love that. You love
I have to circulate. It's my party. I have to circulate. I'll catch up with you later. I have to circulate. Everybody should respect that.
Yeah. No, but I think you just have a healthier mindset.
Yeah.
Where when you're having a conversation, you are locked in. Where this is why my therapist thinks I have ADHD, which is insane because I'm having a conversation. I'm like, all right, what's the next conversation I should be
when I'm having a conversation with you, I'm with you. And I do listen, I will pat myself a little bit on the back.
It's good.
I try to be very present in those moments. And I think that's why people are like, I talked to him for 20 minutes. So, like, especially when I know that some people are not going to know people at the party or whatever. And then I'll try to connect them.
You know what I'm not looking forward to? I don't really want to meet your parent friends, your dad friends and mom friends.
You don't have to. You can just hang out with our old friends. You don't need them in your life. You don't need them in your life. I'll let you know which ones make the threshold of like, okay, I know this person.
Right. Because none of these people have tenure.
Right.
They could be gone here today, gone tomorrow.
Right. I probably won't even need to quiet quit half these people.
Right. They'll just naturally quit themselves.
Should we take a listener question?
Oh, wow. Okay. Usually I'm the one trying to get us a listener question. Let's do it. We will be right back. All right, guys, this is Asking for a Friend. If you have a friendship question or ethical dilemma, send it to us on Instagram, Man of the Year Podcast, and we will answer it on the show. Take it away, Matthew.
So this is interesting because it comes from the other perspective, which we were really hadn't totally covered. This question says, I haven't invited my friend to the last few outings I had. It wasn't anything personal, just the numbers didn't work. It was a small dinner party and a kids thing where they didn't have kids. I can tell they feel I'm pulling back. We haven't used that term, pulling back. And maybe I'm downgrading. Oh, another term we haven't really used. Maybe I'm downgrading slightly, but I definitely still want them in my life. Should I be honest about how close we are? You guys talk about communication, but that feels harsh.
So am I interpreting this that the questioner has kids and they haven't invited the non-kids friends?
Yep.
And is it your understanding that it's because they don't have kids, or is it independent of that?
It sounds like independent. There were two parties, it looks like.
Got it. Okay. Well, I don't necessarily. Our friend group has done a pretty good job of having, if there's kid things, still inviting the non-kid things and let them decide whether they want to come.
Mm-hmm.
I think this listener may be projecting that they don't want them, that they may not want to come.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you feel like you're outgrowing them, which is something we haven't talked about that much, that's a stickier wicket.
By the way, there were a couple of clues, right? That may be happening, right? The pulling back term, and maybe I'm downgrading slightly. Like that is.
Oh, you mean downgrading like the new friends aren't as good, or I'm downgrading your stats?
No, I think this person is saying I am downgrading this person, but I want, because they say maybe I'm downgrading slightly, but I definitely still want them in my life. So it sounds like they're answering their own question in some ways, that like I know that this person isn't going to continue to be at the same. It sounds like they're trying to put them in a different basket.
That's an interesting thing we haven't really dealt with, which is where you want somebody in your life, you like them, but like you can't really, you don't have the time or you don't want them to be inner circle.
Quiet quit, downgrade.
Yeah.
Different, right? This is another level below that, right?
Dim-
Because quiet, right? You don't have to. Maybe it's you don't want to quiet quit people that you want to still be friends with. So maybe there's a different approach to be had.
Well, it's kind of a quiet demotion.
Quiet demotion.
Yeah. Yeah.
Quiet. I like that. Wow, we're really coming up with some terms today.
Well, to your point, you're not really going to sit down, someone that you actually like, and be like, hey, I'm moving you you're going from binge friend to fringe friend.
You're sitting on the bench this game. Sit on the
Yeah.
bench. You're
So
bench.
it is a bit of more of a soft, quiet quit. Is it a he or a she?
It sounded like.
But is he like upset about it, or he just doesn't know, like, what do I say? What do I do? Maybe you don't do anything.
Right. It doesn't. That's what's funny. Just from my reading of it, it says, should I be honest about how close we are? You guys
Oh,
talk about communication, but that feels harsh. So that's basically this person admitting they
mhm.
want to demote this friend.
Well, first
So
of all,
how to demote? Really, I mean, this is a question about how to demote. This is not a quiet quit question. This is
right.
that level below of like, I want to keep this person around, but our expectations aren't aligned, which isn't totally fair to that friend.
Yeah, the other person, first of all, may be fine with it.
Yeah.
First of all, he says, "I want to be honest." Well, first you need to be honest with yourself. So what do you value about this friend? Now, if the person you're demoting, it's tough because we could think they're fine with it, but we don't know. You can't really broach that conversation.
Right.
So
I mean, it's not really up to you to, I think, broach it, right? If they haven't indicated, if you've basically indicated that you're demoting them, right? I think it's maybe the ball's in their court a little.
I was just going to say, what do you think the demotee is thinking?
Well, we don't know, right? I mean, he didn't, that's the thing. You should have, I think next time, give us some indication of how the friend is reacting.
Well, he doesn't. Well, let's just put you in that. Have you ever been demoted?
I'm sure. But I'm just, I can't think actively about who has demoted me or why, but I'm sure that's happened. It's happened to all of us. I'm sure that's
Yeah.
happened to all of us. We all
Yeah.
get demoted and promoted, and circles shift and change all the time. It's fluid and it's not permanent, and you can be upgraded, downgraded, but I think not being aligned with your friends isn't good. If one
Friendship
person
is fluid. Yeah, and I think that, again, if you're the demotee and you're actively seeing this, by the way, when people have kids,
Yep.
that is a natural inflection point, which I think that a lot of people struggle with.
Yep.
But I just want to just flip it a little bit. I know some buddies who their friends have had kids, and the non-kid person, is demoting themselves. Like,
Mhm.
well, they're doing a couple thing, they're doing a family thing, and I don't think you should self-demote.
I think that's a good piece of advice. But I think there's also a defensiveness. We all don't want to be wounded. And so if we pre-reject ourselves,
Right.
right? Like sometimes
We project ourselves.
we project.
Yeah.
We project. If we project ourselves, we think we're actually saving ourselves from the hurt, but we're actually not, because the hurt comes from no longer having this closeness with somebody that we wanted to be close with.
And then, by the way, there's another segment. I have buddies, our friends Dan and Key. They don't like kids. They just don't like kids. So if there's a kid event, they're just like, we're not coming. And
Right.
I have, and by the way, I don't have kids either, but somehow I get offended by that. I'm like, who cares? Like, we're all going to be there.
Listen, I respect people's boundaries. I think that's part of it too. I think we all need to learn to see the signals, accept the signals, respect people's boundaries. But look, it would be nice to know what's going on. Your friends are not mind readers. It would be nice to be able to communicate these things. It's hard. I know this is hard. Honest communication to friends, like I think, are we okay? Is everything good? You don't totally agree with me. You think that's not going to lead anywhere.
Well,
See, I
what
think
is the
sometimes
person?
people will be honest if you give them the chance and there's something going on.
I mean, I can't think of any example in my own life where someone was like, "Is everything okay?" And I was like, "Actually, I don't think we should be the good friends anymore." I mean, that's
No, not that level. Not
right.
that level. But I do think if you've done something, we're not mind readers. We can't, know what's going on in our friends' lives. And so if you give them an opportunity, say, are we good? And your friend goes, actually, I was a little upset about something you did. You can repair and you can fix. And that's a healthy friendship.
By the way, also you can organize some plans that aren't kid related.
Yep.
It's possible to do that.
Right.
Get that crew together.
But I think what you said was right, is that friendships change and evolve. And it's okay to outgrow certain relationships or change the dynamic of them.
I don't love distancing, demoting someone just because you had a kid, though.
Well, I don't necessarily even see it as a necessarily like demotion. So again, I've had a kid recently.
Oh, really? Didn't know that.
You didn't know? Have I mentioned it today? Have I mentioned it on this episode? We got a drink shot.
My dad is gonna write me a sternly
You
worded
wouldn't
text.
understand, Karo. You wouldn't understand.
Yeah.
But it's only natural. What we're talking about is it's only natural to shift your priorities. So I think calling it a demotion because you're spending less time with somebody who doesn't have kids, whether I want to invite you or not, I'm not going to invite you to the PTA meeting. Like there's just certain things that time shift when you have a kid, and those activities are kid centric. Frankly, it's just more difficult and not realistic to have somebody who doesn't have kids, who's not part of that parent kid circle, to spend the same amount of time. That doesn't mean you can't feel the same way or have this person still be quote unquote your inner circle of friend. It's just that time commitment might not be there. And we don't always have to equate those two things with level of friendship, because that person may then have a kid and you may be on the other foot. You find yourself, your kids aren't taking up all your time, but theirs are. And I just think we have to just be careful about saying, oh, this person's demoting me because they're spending a lot of time and I don't have a kid. And, that may happen and it may feel that way, but I don't necessarily always think it's a demotion.
I think you both got to be flexible. A couple years ago, Jeff invited me to go to his kid's Little League game.
Yeah.
Just hung out with him. By the way, not that fun. Probably wouldn't do it again, but it was
you got to gamble on it, Karo. You got to gamble on it. See, when there's money involved and you can, look, I'll tell you one thing, point shaving at Little League is the best way to make money these days.
I'm a little concerned, Matt, because as we know, you have gambling in the blood. You got capillaries and, placing prop bets with the arteries. Gambling is really, do you have any of the apps?
No, well, look, we joke because I have a family history of gambling, but I'm actually worried about this country. We are in a gambling nation moment where they're actually putting, I just read this, they're putting DraftKings and the other one on NBA League Pass on the TV in game on the screen.
So give me an example. Like it would say the spread.
Watching Lakers Celtics and it's like 24-16 and it'll pop up. Do you want to bet on who wins this quarter?
Oh no.
Do you want to bet who has the first basket of the second quarter? Do you want to bet how many threes Jason Tatum has in the second quarter?
Oh no.
It's like Fortnite with skins. You know how they convince these kids to spend all this money in game? They're going to convince all these degenerate men and women with gambling addictions to start throwing away money while watching a game. It's not good enough for them to just watch the game.
But this is interesting because where do you fall on sort of like, it's free speech, they're adults.
I think it's free speech. I just don't think we should encourage it.
Right. You don't think we
You're
should
free to do whatever with your money, but I just don't think we should be encouraging. I think morally, ethically, civically, our communities are not better off with everybody being a degenerate gambler. I can tell you firsthand.
By the way, I'm anti. I don't gamble, as you know, But do
And
you
a lot of
think
men do. I'm sure most of our listeners gamble and like, you loser.
about me? Hey, that's fine.
No,
Listen.
about me too. About me giving them a preaching,
Oh,
speech right now, being on my bully pulpit.
yeah. But like, do you think it's something that could be legislated, or it just is what it is?
I mean, it is legislated. It's illegal in California and it's legal in these other states. And there's
Right.
certain states that you can't have a casino in. Um, I don't know what we can do about it. Look, as I said, I love a good prop bet as much as the next guy. I don't think it's healthy where we're headed. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah. Is it mostly men?
That's a good question. If I had to put my finger on it, I'd say 85% of sports betting, at
Right.
least 5%.
We talked about this way early in the pod. Fantasy football too. I just don't like the fact that you could be rooting against your own team.
Right. Oh, like you would never bet against Giants. But I think, look, fantasy football and like pools, I like the gambling that is communal and sort of like
Yes.
friendship related. For me, like I love that. If we're going to do gambling, do it in a way that fosters friendships, not isolated. Like, oh man, I have to now put another mortgage on my house and not tell my wife.
Right. Right. Yes. Yes. One of the biggest incomings we get, because we have a trophy with our friends, is a lot of guys have fantasy football trophies. Such a blast. You take a boys' weekend or a boys' night. You go to what time of year is it when you like go into every restaurant in like New York or LA or anywhere, and there's like a
Taste
group
of
of
LA. You mean like Taste of New York when that restaurant week is?
No. I mean, like, what time of year is it? Is that fantasy football draft season? So what is that, like summer?
August.
August. Okay. I just like that when you like come into a restaurant, there's like a group with
Oh,
their trophy.
oh yeah. I also advocate for a good poker night because I think there's a communal element of it.
Right. I mean, my mom, as we've talked about, plays canasta for 7
Is that
hours.
for
And
money?
they play for
money?
quarters. Yeah.
Oh, quarters.
You're like,
It's got to be life threatening for me to enjoy the gamble.
did we answer the question?
I think the answer of the question was, hey, you already know the answer that, you really don't feel this friend should be in your inner circle and you're worried about how they're feeling. And look, if you want to communicate that and you think you're in one of those positions where you could say, hey man, I just really have time for these people in my life right now. I love you, but I just, this is where I'm at. Great. I don't think it's necessarily realistic to get our listeners to do that. So if this person hasn't sort of hassled you about it, maybe they hear it and like give them a little credit for being able to receive what you're putting out there.
Yeah. Love it. Listen, guys, keep sending us questions. This was asking for a friend. Send in your question to Instagram, Man of the Year Podcast. I actually want to talk about gambling again for a minute.
Ooh.
Did we did you have like a bookie in like high school? Or
No.
were you?
Somebody did.
Yeah, I remember that.
Somebody had a bookie.
Because you'd get the lines off the newspaper.
Is bookies one of those businesses like travel agents that got really hit by the internet badly?
Well, how do they even, is there a job of like, I come up with the over-under of the game?
Yes. Bookmaker, odds maker.
An odds maker. So that's like a literal job.
So that's another one that may have been wiped out by AI and tech. I wonder, because there are these famous ones like Ace Rothstein was an incredible odds maker or something.
Right. So this person looks at the previous, the historical games.
Right.
And then basically
I think mostly algorithmic now that says like, okay, this upcoming game, Knicks, Minnesota, Knicks favored by 4.5. They're on the road, second game of a back-to-back trip, whatever, factor in all that stuff. But yes, there are people that do the odds and then they shift the odds because of the betting. If there's too much on one side, the house has to have it sort of be even so they win no matter what.
So if the over under is like 5 and everyone's betting under,
they move it up.
They move it up.
Or they move it down.
Right.
So it goes over. So they try and find that sweet spot where the bets are equal so their house takes the win. Because they take their cut.
Yeah, how does the cut work? The VIG?
Yeah, I don't know what it is, but it's just a percentage of all the money that goes in.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. I could not be less interested in gambling.
You're a healthy man.
Like when I go to Vegas with you guys and like someone's like, oh, I was up till 5 a.m. playing
I mean, you're
craps or
missing
whatever.
out
I'm
on
like,
the most fun part of Vegas is the 5 a.m. craps table, but sure.
but you're not, yeah, okay. It just feels insane. But you know what? Listen, it's not for me. It's not for everybody.
Yeah. Yeah.
Matt, what did we learn today?
Well, quiet quitting, great term, gone viral, applies to friendship.
You know, you could quiet quit a friendship, you could quiet demote a friendship. I think I would just encourage if you think you're getting quiet quit on, you know, the psychologist did say to bring it up, to ask if everything's okay. And I think you will get an answer that you can delineate what's actually going on.
I think that's what I was getting to too, is that you'll get the answers. I think we're saying to our audience, reflect. It's a moment to reflect. If you feel you're being quiet quit on or you're quiet quitting, take a moment and reflect on what's happening, right? Like, oh, is this person just busy, or like, have they just made it clear to me that they just don't want to see me, right? And am I going to ask them to hang out one more time? Or am I going to like now wait for them to ask me to hang out? Because I've asked 3 times in a row and got blown off. It's a pretty good signal.
Also, by the way, is someone who's quiet quitting you the kind of person you want to be friends with?
Very good question. Yes, they seem super cool. I want them. No, you're right. You're right. You're absolutely right. Like if they're quiet quitting you, good riddance. Thanks. Thanks for letting me know.
Yeah. I think we should end on good riddance. You need healthier friends in your group. Guys, thanks so much for listening. Remember to check out manoftheyearpodcast.com. Always remember, be good to yourself, be good to your friends. Hey, Matt, love you, buddy.
Love you, buddy.